The WandaVision finale did not reveal Nightmare or Mephisto, but it still seemingly teased a much larger villain at work than simply Agatha Harkness. Let's talk about Cthulhu, the weirdest freaking thing Marvel's maybe ever done that might also be the thing that created Wanda. And yes, this has to do with that very bizarre end credit scene. What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you smash that like button. And I want to remind everybody that we are doing like a ton of streaming over on our live streaming channel. Okay, yeah, before we get into all this craziness about the fun speculation attached to the Wanda character and to Cthulhu and the possibility of that Darkhold thing meaning some very wild stuff, I think it's fair to say that yes, we did get caught fanboy dreaming and getting way too into the leaks for WandaVision. However, even though Mephisto and Nightmare were not actually put into the show at all and teased pretty much in any way, the whole idea of there being some large and nefarious thing at play here, I think is still on the table. And the Darkhold itself has deep connections to a very crazy character from Marvel Comics called Cthulhu. And let's just stop for a second here and just clarify to everybody that I can't pronounce anything, and I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but this character is a very old, ancient, dark entity in Marvel Comics that in some ways represents old H.P. Lovecraft ideas of monsters, and I think in some ways he's like an Ancient One or Cthulhu type being. And so the idea of like a Nightmare or a Mephisto pulling the strings is still potentially at play, and that is what we want to focus on in this video, and probably what we're going to focus most of the speculation spinning out of WandaVision on. Now, let's begin with the whole idea of Wanda being a Scarlet Witch and how that is a huge deal for the show, and it seems like the show is teeing up Marvel fans to just accept or come around to the idea that the Scarlet Witch is a crazy thing in general. Couple of points here. There was the opportunity here for them to explain that Wanda was a mutant, and a lot of fans thought that was the way the show was going to go, expressing that although she does have these magic abilities and that she is a witch, that it is actually the fact that she's a mutant that caused all of the craziness and the expansion of her power. But instead, the show merely explains that the fact that she is a Scarlet Witch, or the Scarlet Witch, is the biggest of big deals. And in the finale, I mean, Agatha Harkness basically says there's a whole chapter to you in the Darkhold. You are more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. It is your destiny to destroy the world. Now, that's just a couple of lines, but it's pretty crazy for Marvel fans to, number one, understand that Wanda is literally more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. Meaning she's stronger than Doctor Strange. That's a mother effing problem. But you know, it's really that second part that seems to really bug people, and that is the fact that it's her destiny to destroy the world. Now let's take a step back and talk about Agatha Harkness as a character, because although she is more or less the only big bad of the series other than Wanda in some ways, even her story sets up the fact that she could be serving a greater master. And this has a lot of parallels to the Loki character and how he is introduced and used in the Avengers movies. If you will recall, Loki is literally given the scepter by Thanos and given a ton of crazy knowledge, and then is given the scepter to go lead Thanos' army to do this crazy thing on Earth. And Loki fancies himself the big bad that could potentially even overthrow Thanos someday or just be, his own king. But to Thanos, he is a pawn, and we eventually find out that the powers of Loki, when come up against the powers of Thanos, are really nothing at all, especially when there are Infinity Stones involved. Agatha is also given knowledge, or takes knowledge, that is beyond her station and age. This is her taking the Darkhold and learning of its crazy dark powers. And on top of that, the scene from earlier in the season where she is just draining their powers away makes a lot more sense. That seems to be just a unique ability that Agatha has, or perhaps an ability that she's granted by her master, Cthulhu. And it's also important to note that Agatha is put on the sidelines, just transformed into the nosy neighbor like by a spell from Wanda at the end of the episode. She will just be at Westview, and she will likely show up again in the MCU, much like Loki did after being sidelined after Avengers. But there's one more thing that is sort of talked about in the finale that's really, really interesting. When talking about the Scarlet Witch, Agatha Harkness also mentions that the Scarlet Witch is not born, but she is instead forged. Now, this is pretty wild and pretty interesting to me, ladies and gentlemen. What that would imply is that just like the Infinity Stones, Wanda may not have an actual beginning or end, but is forged or brought together by outside forces for the purposes of a particular universe or a creation. Now, I'll skip right ahead to what I'm really thinking about when I talk about this, and this would be the Beyonders from Marvel Comics, but particularly the time runs out and Jonathan Hickman Avengers run into his Secret Wars. The Beyonders are these crazy entities that are so strong that all of reality, including the Celestials and Galactus, are merely playthings to them. The Beyonders basically treat all of the multiverse as a sandbox. They have complete control of that sandbox, and they could end that sandbox at any time. And in fact, one of the sort of programmed systems into the multiverse was a self-destruct code that manifested itself in the character of Molecule Man. Molecule Man, we come to find in Jonathan Hickman's Secret War run-up, is a bomb that was put into the multiverse by the Beyonders to eventually click on and all have them explode at the same time, destroying all of the multiverse. Is it possible that what they're doing with Wanda in this whole Scarlet Witch sort of prophesized status, are they creating a replacement for what Molecule Man was in Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars lead up, and creating this weird thing where not only Wanda, but all of the different other Wandas in the multiverse are Scarlet Witches, which allow them incredible power, but they're also destined to destroy the world, their own particular worlds, but then all worlds all together at once. But I will admit that is a lot of fanboy dreaming. Of course, I just fit things into the place to make Secret Wars make sense. I've been talking about Secret Wars for a long, long time. I really want this to be the thing that they do with Marvel. I have heard that it is the direction they are generally going in, but if WandaVision teaches us any lessons, it is we should be hesitant, at least I should be hesitant, to being too attached to certain outcomes, because I can filter the news and the rumors and the leaks through sort of the attachments that I have. Having said that, it seems like WandaVision does set up massive things for the future, and we have heard a lot of different people talk about how Wanda's story is going to continue. In fact, there is some evidence to suggest that not only Wanda's story, but whatever is happening with her children, which is of course teased in the post-credits scene, that is going to have a huge thing to do with what is going on in the multiverse and what is going on eventually in the Doctor Strange sequel. And then lastly, in this sort of explanation / speculation trail that we're on here, spinning out of WandaVision for the character of Wanda, I do want to talk about the children. Because even though I was personally a little disappointed with how the goodbye was executed, there is some weird stuff that's said. Wanda says some things like family is forever.
A family is forever. We could never truly leave each other even if we tried.
What does that mean? She's literally saying goodbye to them, also wanting them to know that family is forever. Maybe that means something. I also find it interesting that she tells the children, "Thank you for choosing me to be your mother." What does that mean exactly?
Thanks for choosing me to be your mom.
What are the children? Are they complete creations? Are they manifestations of the Soul Stone? Like, what are they exactly? We need a lot of answers still, but it is implied, rather, that with this post-credit scene, the kids being a big part of the last episode and being a thing that sort of shocks Wanda in the post-credit scene, that storyline will likely have a lot to do with where we go from here. And in the comics, there is a lot to do with Mephisto, souls, the children, and weird, interesting stuff like that, as well as weird stuff with her and Vision. So I guess what I'm saying is a lot of Wanda and Vision's and the twins storyline from the comics and all of those different comic book runs from that time period are still technically on the table, and we could see them manifest. And I'm reminded of the frickin' Secret Invasion thing. When I first saw Captain Marvel, I was personally pretty bummed about good guy Skrulls because I really wanted Secret Invasion to happen. I wanted bad guy Skrulls. But now, a couple of years later, we realize that they are going to do a proper Secret Invasion, that there are bad guy Skrulls, and there's a lot of crazy things going on. And so maybe there's something similar to be said for WandaVision. I was personally a little upset, and some fans are as well, that we didn't get the full-on House of M crazy, like, Mephisto's soul split and manifest in the children like bizarro, amazing things from the comics. But it's also possible that we did get the beginning of that, and that the seeds of that and the sort of new direction they take with it is still going to be very satisfying, still going to be well thought out, and tie into a bunch of things moving forward. So for me personally, it's like, oh man, I'm very bitter about the Pietro thing, which I will do a separate video on. But as far as the character of Wanda and the future of the MCU, there's still plenty of stuff here to be excited about and speculate about moving forward. But that's my thoughts on the sort of post-credit scene where she is studying the Darkhold in astral projection. Very Doctor Strange-esque there. I can't wait to see these two characters interacting in the Doctor Strange sequel. So we talked about that. We talked about Chthon or Cthulhu or whatever, that crazy entity that could be replacing Nightmare or Mephisto, or they might be combining aspects of all three of those characters and making their own ancient, primordial, before the universe evil thing. Regardless, there's still a lot of dope Marvel stuff to come. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel for more content about WandaVision, about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Snyder Cut, and all the great nerdy things. And make sure you are checking out the live streaming channel where we're going to be talking about all of these different things and doing a ton of content about all the shows that are coming out for the rest of the year. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.